All right, this is section 2.2. Again, mostly a review from college algebra, but we need to look at how to do the composition of two functions. We're going to then practice the difference quotient that's really going to get us ready for the calculus in a few sections. And then we're going to look at an application problem about the cost function, which is going to continue to come up throughout the semester. So, first of all, let's look and review how to do the composition function. A lot of my college algebra students call this fog and golf because of this particular notation. So, what is a composition function? Basically, you're taking two functions and creating a new one. You are composing. So, how do we find f of g? That's how that's read, f of g, and it's really of x. A lot of textbooks leave that out. In other textbooks, you may see it in this type of notation, which I really prefer, because what this tells you, it says substitute g of x in every place there is an x, and I just think it's easier notation, but that is not what you're going to see on the computer. All right, so let's see, what does that say? It says to evaluate f at x minus 5. That's g of x. So that means you're going to come back up to the f function. In every place there is an x, you're going to replace it with now x minus 5. All right, so we're going to have this as 2 times x minus 5 squared minus x minus 5. And I really would suggest every place you're going to replace the x with g of x. Replace the x, in this case, with x minus 5. Put it in those parentheses so you can really see how it's taking the place of that x. All right, and then we just do algebra as in far as simplifying that out. So we want to square this out. Remember, that's x minus 5 times x minus 5, which is not that. Let me erase that. So that would be minus 10x, I believe, plus 25. Then you want to make sure you distribute the minus sign. Right now I'm going to distribute the 2. And now I'm going to collect like terms. And you're done. Okay? You don't want to try to factor it. You're not solving for x. Again, you're just composing and making a brand new function. All right, so let's now do g of f of x. So that means g of f of x. All right, so again, we're going to take f of x and put it in for x. So we're going to evaluate the g function at 2x squared minus x plus 1. So it means we're going to go to the g function, and in place of x, we're going to put this function, and then don't forget the other part, the minus 5. So the algebra here is much easier. Just going to remove those parentheses, basically, collect like terms. And so this example says to go a little bit further. It says now we're going to evaluate h of 2. Well, where the heck did this h come from? H is now being defined as the composition function of g of f of x. There's a couple of different ways to do this. I am going to go ahead and find out what g of f of x is in general, and then I can plug in any number I want. All right, and so let's see, this is g of f of x, and then what is f of x? All right, so that means I'm going to go to my g function, and in place of x, I'm going to replace it with this fraction of 1 over 2x plus 1. So this is going to be the square root of 1 over 2x plus 1. So that's really h of x. All right, that's what they're defining that as. All right, so now it says to evaluate. Well, they can say h of 2, 1, 0, anything. Now I just get to plug in numbers. So I want h of 2. So I want to replace x with that numerical value. And you can stop there. Most likely, most math books don't like you to leave radicals in the denominator. So I'm going to do that thing that's called rationalizing the denominator. But just to tell you, we're going to take paper and pencil test. If you were to leave that in the square root of 1 over 5 form, that would be perfectly fine with me. Okay, this next example, really we're going back to section 2.1 and we're just going to be practicing rewriting these functions. Instead of x, we've got a's and a plus x's. It's really the baby step to the definition of the derivative. All right, so let's see. It's asking us to find that. All right, so we have f of x. I want to do this in 2 steps. You don't have to, but I'm going to go break it down. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to do that one, and then I will subtract it. So let's see, f of a plus h. So again, every place there is an x, I'm going to replace it with a plus h. All right, so I have to square this. You need to be very careful. I have a minus sign in front. All right, so what I want to do, order of operations say I need to square this out first. All right, and remember, that's just a plus h times a plus h, FOIL it, collect like terms. You're going to do that so many times that, trust me, in about by test 1, that should just be really easy. All right, so next is go ahead and distribute that minus sign. And truthfully, that little minus sign just kills people as far as points on a test. So just be careful. All right, the next thing, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find f of a. All right, so again, I'm going to replace x with just a. Should be a little bit easier, so I just have 4 minus a squared. No big deal. All right, so now it says to subtract those 2 answers. All right, so we have another minus sign. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to subtract that. Well, I could write it all in one line, but notice I am putting in a parenthesis, so I'm going to remember to subtract both of those. And then I want to collect like terms, and this is where you will see things being added out to 0. And so we just get that. Right? So you're going to be doing that just so many times. Just be very careful with your negative signs. All right? Just like the last example, we're going to take this expression and we're going to find f of a plus h first, then f of a, and subtract them. And the last thing we're going to do is divide by h. So I'm going to get started here and find f of a plus h. So everywhere there's an x, I'm going to replace it with a plus h. All right, order of operations, I need to square this out first. Then I need to be very careful and distribute that minus sign. So now we need to distribute the 3. So that is f of a plus h. The second step is to find f of a. So we just need to replace x with a. Now we need to subtract f of a plus h and f of a. So in order to subtract this expression minus this expression, we can really just add the opposite. So I'm going to kind of do it vertically, as in I'm going to change all these signs because that's what I'm subtracting. And then I'm going to collect like terms looking vertically. So 3a squared minus 3a squared is 0. A negative a and a positive a is 0. And a positive 1 and a negative 1 is 0. So what we have left is 6ah plus 3h squared minus h. And the very last thing we need to do is to divide by h. Now that is according to that formula. So we need to reduce that. Let's see if we can. We can factor out a common h in the numerator. And now we can see that both the numerator and the denominator have an h in common. And so this is my final answer. Take your time. So let's do one more. Now this one's a bit nasty because it has that x cubed. All right, so again, we're going for f of a plus h minus f of a, all divided by h. Now, lots of students like to do this all in one fell swoop, and if you're really good at that, that's fine. I'm just trying to break it down. So I have f of a plus h. Now, this cube thing means basically you take the squared and you multiply it by a plus h, but I kind of know a shortcut. Been doing this for a long time, and that is not it. But that's what happens if you cube that out, and then I want to distribute the minus sign. Okay, so now I have f of a, and remember we're just replacing x with a. And now I'm going to subtract it, so I'm going to change all the signs and look at it horizontally and saying, okay, sorry, looking at vertically. And the last step is to divide by h. Now if you notice, every term has an h, so you could just cancel it out like that, but I want to be clear, I can factor out an h on the top. That's a common factor, a GCF if you will. And remember, h out of h is 1. That should be a minus sign divided by h, and now we can cancel that out, and that's our final answer. The last couple of problems, and again, this will keep coming about in the course, is talking about a cost function and stuff like that. So if you think about it, the total cost of making something is fixed cost, like your office furniture, your rent, things like that. And then the variable cost would be like how much does it cost to actually manufacture each item. All right, so this manufacturer has water filters, and it has a fixed cost of $10,000. And it has a variable cost according to that function. All right, and remember over here that's just the domain that says they make between 0 and 40,000 water filters, or at least that's how you obtain the cost between that. All right, so it says find the total cost function. So let's see, the total cost function, variable plus the fixed. All right, so I'm going to write this in terms of C of x for total cost, and so I would just add these two things together. So I have $10,000. Don't put the dollar sign. You might not even want to put the comma. And then I'm going to add my variable. Now, since that's a plus in front of the parentheses, it's not going to make a difference. Okay, so now I want to find the total cost incurred of 30,000 filters. So obviously we need a calculator, all right, and that's all you need. And let me just say that this is quite ugly, so I think I'm going to get rid of that and just write that as a minus sign. All right, so I'm going to get a calculator and just punch that in. And if I punch this in correctly, I got a cost of $220,000. Wow, that seems like a lot. I may have missed a decimal, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Okay, so now we want the total revenue. Okay, so this is what it cost us to make 30,000 filters. So the total revenue is given by this, all right? That's how much money is generated, like you sell these things and it comes in. So what is the total profit? Well, profit, if you just think about it, profit is revenue, that's how much money you brought in, minus how much it cost you. So let's do it in simple terms. If you made $100 from selling a bunch of candy bars, but it cost you $10 to make the candy bars, then you have a profit of $90. All right, so just kind of think about it, actually real life application. So total profit is your revenue minus your cost. So let's see, we have negative 1, 2, 3. Okay, and again we have a minus sign. All right, so my cost function and didn't leave myself a lot of room. I'm going to come down here Notice I'm distributing that minus sign. So that is my profit function. And now I want to know my profit if I make 10,000 filters. And so I'm just going to substitute in 10,000 everywhere I see an X. And this is why you really want a good calculator. Doesn't have to be expensive, but just one you know how to punch in. Running out of room here, so I'm going to come down here to say plus. And truthfully, my biggest mistake on these problems are all those zeros. So just be careful. And again, if I did my calculating correctly, put a $40,010. You really need to make sure you know about the total cost function and the profit function. We will be seeing this many, many, many more times.